Hey there, it's Jesse. If you've ever started a business before, then you already know that it's one of those things that can grow you up really quickly. And that was certainly the case for me. I started my first business at age 23, and I learned a lot. And one of the biggest lessons I learned about people that I'm really still noticing today is that a shocking number of the decisions that we make are not driven by facts, by data, by objective reasoning of any kind. They're driven by emotions, feelings. And emotions and feelings, obviously, without even saying, are wonderful things, right? But not so often when they're the main driver behind our decisions. If you're a business owner or you're thinking about starting a business, this is even more true for you. And so what I want to tell you about today is just 5 reasons why I've noticed people tend to make emotionally driven decisions. And included in this, we're going to talk a little bit about how to handle that and how to be aware of these so that we don't do the same thing and so that we can make decisions that are wiser and that are based in actual logical reasoning that really works. Before we get started, not every decision is logical, by the way. There are some decisions that you do need to make based on gut feeling, based on your emotions, and that's totally cool. I'm down with that. But in a lot of the decisions we make as a business owner, it's by far preferable to make these decisions based on actual data. And so here are 5 reasons we tend to not do that and to instead make decisions that are based on emotion. The first one is clarity, or rather a lack of clarity. But for now, we're just going to write one word. So if you don't really understand where you are now, like let's say that you don't really know what your income is and you don't really know where it's going when you're spending it, then it's going to be really hard to make decisions that aren't based on emotion because you don't really have anything else, right? And so that goes for the same thing if you're a business owner. You've got QuickBooks or whatever telling you what's coming in and what's going out. And if you don't know what those numbers are, they're not categorized correctly or whatever, it's very difficult to make decisions that will get you the results that you want out of your business or your life or whatever. Number 2, the second reason we tend to make emotionally driven decisions is education. Hopefully you can see these letters from these words from there, but the second reason really in education has to do with, let's say that you know where you are now and where you want to go, but if you don't really understand your different options that you have and the different factors that are involved and the different results that are likely to come from them, then it's going to be very difficult to make decisions that are based on anything other than emotion. So learning is extremely important, and taking the time to really dive in and understand the options that you have, to go online to read about the different decisions that you want to make and what people have done in the past and how it's worked out. This stuff's extremely important. A lot of us don't make the time to do that. And that brings us to number 3, time. A lack of time is also one of the biggest reasons why we tend to make emotionally driven decisions. Because especially as a business owner, a lot of us don't even own businesses, right? But our lives are crazy enough that we don't have time to really sit down and think through all the different options and the way and the effects that they're going to have when we choose them. Especially if we're being rushed by a situation or by other people or whatever. So if you have a lack of time, you're going to be a lot more likely to make emotionally driven decisions, which brings us really to the importance, as I've said before, of carving time out in your schedule to do nothing but just think. And for a lot of us, it sounds counterintuitive, but it's one of the most valuable things that you can possibly do, especially as a business owner. And I really, really believe that. So make enough time to make decisions that are based in more than emotion. Number 4 is objectivity. Now, a lot of us, at least in my experience, are not making decisions objectively at all. And in my opinion, this is one of the most valuable and powerful skills that you can develop as a business leader and as a person in general, in life, is the ability to be objective and to look at situations, even those that involve you in an intense way, to look at those situations objectively. In other words, if you, let's say that you're in a situation where there are a lot of pieces on the table and you're in the middle of all of those, it's going to be very difficult for you to make a decision when you're deeply involved and you're in the middle of it. But if you rise above it and imagine that you're in an airplane and you're looking down, you see all these little pieces down there, and it makes it a whole lot easier to make a smart decision and to see which options are better and which ones are going to be more likely to end up giving you the result that you want, because you're looking at it in a, for lack of better terms, detached way, to where you're kind of temporarily imagining that you're not even involved, right? How much easier is it to give somebody else advice about their situation than it is to know what to do in your challenging situations with a relationship or a financial decision or whatever? It's a lot easier to give somebody else advice because we're detached, we're objective. And if you can learn to do that for yourself, to rise above it and say, hey, if I wasn't involved in this situation, what would I do? If somebody came to me in this situation and asked my advice, what would I tell them? That ability to be objective can help you avoid the tendency to make emotionally driven decisions and make decisions that will give you the results you want, that are more based in data and sound logic and reasoning. Number 5, and the final one we're going to talk about, is a lack of motivation. Now, if we don't really understand the benefits of making decisions that are driven by data or logic or objective reasoning, and we don't really maybe have the awareness that we tend to make decisions based on emotion in our lives, then we're probably not going to have motivation to do the research and put the effort in really that's required to get data that you can use to make actually smart decisions with reasons that you can back up, right? So if you want the motivation to do it, what I would suggest doing is trying to use a data-driven decision in just one area of your life, whether it's fitness and you're tracking every single exercise you do for a straight month, or whether it's dieting, or whether it's in your business, you say, okay, I'm gonna actually get my profit and loss statement. I'm gonna clear it up so that I actually know where things are going and things are categorized. There are no uncategorized sections where there's just money floating there. And just try making data-driven decisions in one area of your life, because what will happen most likely, and what happened for me, is that as soon as you taste what it's like to make decisions that are based in sound logic and reasoning and data and everything else, then it becomes a little bit addictive, right? Because when you have data, when you have actual facts to make decisions with, you realize that you have more control and more power than you've ever had before over your business, your life, even your future. Now, none of us have complete control, and that's not the idea. The idea is to use the data and the facts that we have available to us to have as much control as we possibly can, because our goals are important to us. Our life's important. Our kids are important. And whatever you have in your life that you're working for is important, so it's worth doing right. And doing things right requires making data-driven decisions. Before I let you go, one of the things that I do want to share with you is that this concept of data, and even the term of data-driven decision-making, is not something I came up with. It's a term that I heard used by a man named Eben Pagan several years ago, and it really changed how I thought about business and how I thought about the way that a business should be run. And it honestly equipped me to run my business much more successfully. So if you've been thinking about getting a mentor, if you've been thinking about learning things like this from people who've already built a successful business or whatever, this is all the more reason to do it. Don't make all the mistakes yourself. You can learn from other people, and really the comparison between emotional decision making and data-driven decision making is something that has made that very evident to me. So I'd love to hear what you think about this. If you have thoughts on it, if you can think of even more reasons why we tend to make emotionally driven decisions, I would love to hear what those are. This is far from an exhaustive list. So comment below, share this if it's been helpful to you. I'd love to hear from you, and thanks for watching.